Yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
Yeah.
Easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the calls for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for
that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been
That's
doing.
right. Hello, our viewing audience. I see Barama Smith has let us know that she is here. Come on, come on, come on in. Let us know where it is you are, who you are, and where you're listening from, and where you're listening from. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. We have a lot of wonderful things that we want to talk about on this day. Welcome to another show of Timely Wisdom. And so let me check in with my sisters first before we kind of jump into our topics on the day. Dr. Brenda Wallace. Dr. Brenda Wallace. Oh, this says an author. All right. All the way from Staten Island, New York. Wow, so wonderful to have you with us today. I do not want to attempt to mispronounce your name. Is it Injeri? I wonder, and I hope, welcome for joining us on today. Marjorie Hamilton Scott from McKinney, Texas. Renee Thompson, my child, my daughter, all the way from South Carolina. So good to have you all on today. Let us know that you are listening on today. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Yvonne Williams, yes, hello from Grand Prairie, Texas. Reverend Lady Neesmith from Lancaster, yes, yes, yes. Come on in. Let us know that you are here on today. Wallace, I'm going to start with you because I guess you ran out of clothes or something today to put on. So let's just start with you. How are you doing? You apparently cannot be doing too well. That you down to sweats and shirts and things on today.
On a
Tired.
very, very much. This is a white sweater, not sweats. Thank you very much.
Rosalind Leslie from Delaware, thank you for joining us today. Come on in and let us know that you're here today.
Hello, viewing audience. Hello, my sisters of Timely Wisdom. How is everybody? I had a pretty stressful day today. I've been trying to breathe and calm myself for this broadcast so that I would be ready for whatever came up today. So I'm looking forward to our time together about what's going on in Washington, D.C., what's going on in the West Bank.
Hold on a second. Somebody apparently must be recovering from a fever. Marjorie Scott says something about loving your top, so I think she's probably
hello, Marjorie. Hello. Love you. I do. Thank you, darling. Thank you so very much. Thank you. I need all the support I can get, especially with these other haters we got on this program here.
Haters?
Yeah, sound like a hater to me.
Haters. This is an observation. I was just wondering if your washing machine broke. That was all.
I'm just saying, can we all just get along?
No breakdown of the washing machine. Hallelujah. All the dryer. Thanks be to God. It was cold this morning, and I grabbed something that I thought would be warm for the rest of the
I see. Okay. Dr. Right.
Your mama is trying to be funny, but she's not. How about that?
Dr. Sarita Wright, how are you today?
I am doing well. I want you all to know that they really do love each other. They really, really love each other. So much so that one day Dr. Wallace wore a nice, pretty blue outfit and took it next to Dr. Burns's picture.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And you do know you cannot tease people that you don't love.
That is so true. A lot of people miss that. That is so true.
You have to love folk and know that they love you in order to tease them.
Well, we tell people when they come to the house, everybody's fair game. You might as well get ready.
I get it.
Yes, it is a little chilly here in the Missouri side, but other than that, it's not a whole lot going on. I'm kind of anticipating some of these topics that we're going to discuss today. I was trying to read and do my due diligence because I have questions too. I'm trying to figure out what's going on for real.
Wow.
So, and then I just saw that little snippet about Jordan missed becoming Speaker of the House by one vote, and they saying that they're gonna try some other ways around.
We'll come back around to that. We're gonna come back to all that. We're gonna come back right now. I'm just asking how y'all doing. How y'all doing? I'm glad that you don't have on again your leftover clothes. I'm proud. I'm happy of that. And Wallace, let me know if I need to send you a contribution for your washer dryer at your home since you couldn't find anything else.
How about you go ahead and send that whether I need it or not? All donations. How about that?
So Yonder Case, it's so good to see you on today. You have been in my prayers. I am believing God with you. And so good to see you in our chat on today. Y'all, I was listening before we get into our other topics on today. I was listening to a broadcast earlier today. It's called New Era Council of Prophets. Both of you all are able to meet her. Bishop Designate Cynthia G. West is the anchor host for this show. But one of the things that I observed in this show on today that I thought was absolutely tremendous as they were beginning, but the topic and the issue that they were dealing with, they began to talk about fear and saying, about dealing with holy fear and then some other things, but then also our humanity in the process of this. But here it was that it began to hear them be really transparent, right, about some of the issues that they have faced. And I was really, really blessed by that broadcast on today because so many who hold offices in God's church, that's one of the things that you don't ever kind of hear from individuals who are leaders, right? You don't hear their vulnerability. You don't hear this. You don't hear that story of how it is, right, that they've had to navigate those waters to get to, where they are and what it is that they do. And just really encouraged. I thought about you, Dr. Wallace, as I was listening to the broadcast about how you were like, check, this is how you really cause your group of people, right, to move toward healing. This is how you cause people.
That's the only way. You got to be vulnerable and willing to talk about your stuff. So if you can't talk about your stuff, your healing is not going to take place. So you're right. You're right.
Wow.
I'll share later on the Reverend Bridget Houston sent me a listing of about 12 things you should know about your pastor. So when you brought that up, that's what kind of clicked in my mind. She sent out a text to our class, and I thought it was pretty good. It doesn't talk necessarily about pastors being vulnerable, but it does talk about how members might see their pastors in a different light. So,
wow. Well, so our view on because like today, we do have some individuals that we're going to kind of bring in with the topics that we want to discuss on today. But some of you that that are here, kind of share with us. Let us hear. Do you think your leader, whether it be your pastor, your prophet, your apostle, the chair, your trustee, your deacon board, or whoever, do you think that they should show vulnerabilities, or do you think that for the betterment of the church, they should always kind of present themselves in a particular way? What do you all? Let me kind of hear
It would
from
be
you all. Just put it in the chat for us real quick. What your thoughts are around that?
That's good. That's
And
good, Doc. That's good, Doc. That's good. It would be would be interesting to see how our viewing audience think. Oh, look at that, Karen Harry. How you doing, brother?
Hori from New York.
Oh,
She's
is
recovering
that
from a fever
ORA?
too.
Okay, that's an O.
She's recovering from a fever too.
So pretty.
Wow. So I
Good,
see
good.
Tina Wallace says that as a pastor, she's transparent as a pastor. Say a little bit more in the chat for us, Reverend Wallace, Pastor Wallace, about what that means for you.
Doc, do you want me to go ahead and share maybe these 10, 12 things and
Yes, yes,
people can think about them?
yes.
What Reverend Bridget Houston, who is one of the CME ministers, sent this to me this morning, and she says, pastors are not spirit beings, they are humans. It will help if you know a few of these things about them. One, your pastor can fall sick. Your pastor gets tired. Your pastor feels frustrated sometimes. Your pastor needs care. Your pastor needs a miracle too sometimes. Your pastor has needs. Your pastor is not flawless. Your pastor needs prayer. Your pastor needs someone to stand by them in times of trouble. Your pastor can make mistakes. Your pastor is called and anointed by God, but is not God. And I added, yes, and they represent God in human form. Your and lastly, number 12 is your pastor does not have all the answers. I think those
Wow.
are some
Wow.
good things.
Okay.
And I want to give her a high five. She wasn't feeling well yesterday, but she did send this out to me this morning. So I'm grateful. These are things that our people need to understand and know about their pastors.
Wow. So wow. Thank you for that, Wallace, and we thank Bridget Houston for sharing those with you and you sharing it with us. And here's some of our viewers here. They're saying about pastors' transparency, right? That as a pastor, and Jerry says I'm always open and transparent. Minister Val Bell says I believe my leaders should always be transparent, but with boundaries.
That's
Wow.
good.
Let's kind of say a little bit more to us, Bell, what you mean about but with boundaries.
Yeah, I like
Tina
that
Wallace.
she got on too.
Okay. And Tina Wallace, we asked her to say a little bit more about being transparent. And she says, I've had a child die at 22 with mental health issues. And it is important to me to show that we are vulnerable to the same things that parishioners go through. Wow.
Amen.
Wow.
Amen.
Marjorie Scott says, transparency, integrity, honesty is in my preaching and pastoral leadership to remind folks we are all human. And here's Regina Garrett. Wow, it's not my business. However, I appreciate the transparency. This is a layperson perspective. Say it ain't my business, but I appreciate the transparency. Right. I remember watching a broadcast of a pastor sitting down and telling his congregation, my wife and I, we just got a divorce. Right. How was that? Wallace comes back and says boundaries are important. We can't bleed on the people. We need someone to talk to as well.
Amen.
Here's another layperson, Panay Woods, General Secretary, who says transparency should always be a part of our witness, whether a pastor or layperson. Thank you for that, Executive Secretary Woods.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, so apparently here's someone responding, says, what do you think, Roz? Okay, so I'm assuming maybe this is a lady responding to one of the others. That I've known you for 10 years, very transparent, willingly not forced nor fake. And I value transparency in all areas of leadership inside and outside the church. Makes you more relatable. Okay. All right. And pastors are humans. All right. Now, this is interesting, and we're going to go back to some of our other shows. But what I've also have found is that most folk are all right with their pastor's transparency as long as they are not female. Okay, I'm going to just throw that one in there. All right. I've noticed that they are all right? That a male pastor can talk about his struggles with some stuff, sexual indiscretion, he got somebody pregnant over here, and the folk, he just a man. He just
to female pastors that they will not only under the bus, but they will be scorched at the cross.
At the cross, right? Yeah, but we just know, and they'll vote them back in. They'll stand up for them, but woo-wee. And so when they talk about for some kind of boundaries, that's part of things that as women continue to experience in that role. That transparency, but maybe not as much. Here's an armor bearer speaking. Says, speaking from a place of a previous armor bearer, pastors have limited people to be open with. Their transparency isn't always accepted. Yeah, and So thank you all for that.
That's good. That's why pastors need to have a close circle of friends. Sometimes ministers, sometimes lay, to help them stay human, so that they have somebody close to them that they can share their vulnerabilities with, so that they don't bleed all over the church.
Okay, all right. So you're kind of agreeing with boundaries as well, then. Okay, I shouldn't tell you. I shouldn't tell you everything.
Right. I mean, it shouldn't. You would, as if you weren't a pastor, you wouldn't tell everything, right?
I don't know. Some people who they like a refrigerator about their personal life.
That means they need some therapy.
But the other side of that is if I get what you're saying, Dr. Wallace, and I kind of agree, because not everybody's mature enough to handle your story. And some people try to hold you hostage to your story when you're transparent. My pre-Jesus years, I was kind of like out there, and then there was some folks couldn't handle that. And so then they try to come back and bring that up again and say, well, you used to be. Well, you wasn't on that street, so how you know?
Wow. Well, okay, so you all, we want to talk about a couple of things. We're gonna get to the house last, I think. But this they've called it the Israel-Hamas war, right? The Israel-Hamas war, and well, I have some viewpoints on that, because in calling it Israel-Hamas, there's a major group of people as well that's also being left out in regard to this. I asked a couple of people they would drop in on today with us. One of them is backstage. Two of them are backstage with us right now. And I want to kind of hear their perspectives. One is Dr. Cassandra Perry. We want to welcome her to the stage. Audience, please welcome her. And then I have my sister, my double, triple kind sister here, Dr. Kahorn El-Amin, who is here to kind of talk to us about that. And we want to hear you all's thoughts as well in the chat about how it is that you're viewing the Israel-Hamas war. For me, I have been bothered by this, and want to hear from my co-host as well. From the beginning, haven't had an opportunity to have traveled to Israel and spent some time there. There's a whole nother segment of people that are left out of this conversation. And I mean, so when Israel, who has a right to defend themselves, right? That, you know, that they were attacked, the people were attacked, they have a right to defend themselves. But when they said that they were just going to close off the Gaza Strip and just begin this relentless bombing, and people, you know, going, yes, yes, take out Hamas, my mind went, but there's another whole segment of people that are not being considered in this. And so want to hear from Wallace and Wright, and then our guest who popped in for us on today. Y'all welcome, y'all welcome. I hadn't seen it come in yet. I hadn't seen y'all welcome our guests yet. And come in, sell them. Welcome, 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 welcome for jumping in with us. But y'all talk to me. I've done a whole lot of talking. So I'm putting myself on mute so I can hear from the four of y'all.
Well, the whole thing is very disturbing. Especially when you consider the fact that they're just attacking with no regard for families, no regard for the children, no regard for clergy or anything else. And how do you just decide to take over somebody's stuff? Now, granted, we know America's done it for years. And so maybe they took notes from their book, but it's just concerning.
They did.
Because it's reckless and nobody is acting like they really could care less.
It's a free fall. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hey everybody, my name is Cassandra Perry. I haven't been to the Holy Lands in over a decade, but I made 3 trips there. And I say Holy Lands because we tend to conflate, we tend to call Israel the Holy Land. The reality is that in the Middle East, you have Israel, you have Egypt, you have Jordan, you have Syria, you have Lebanon. All of them are holy lands. All of them are in our Christian scriptures. Israel does not have a monopoly on holiness. So, I'm sorry?
I said, so they say.
Yeah. So going back to that, because I've become a recent Facebook warrior, and I have lots of friends who are Jewish, and I absolutely agree with the right of Israelis to defend themselves, as I agree with the right of Palestinians to defend themselves. Now, there's so much I want to say, so please bear with me and interrupt me at any point. But the modern day nation of Israel was created in 1948. It was created by a bunch of colonizers, none of whom had melanin in their skin. These were colonizers who had been in control of Palestine, of various Middle Eastern countries. And there's this whole conversation about the Jewish people needing a homeland because ever since in the Bible, the Jewish people came out of the East and they went to Israel, and they wouldn't obey God, and they kept getting tossed out of Israel. And I'm not trying to speak down about the Jewish people, but the history of the Jewish people has been a history of being kicked out from country to country to country. There's this biblical connection of people called Israel with a land called Israel, and somehow that was conflated to this region around the Mediterranean. And it was like, okay, well, let's take it away from the Palestinians because the Arabs can take them in, and let's give some biblical borders of Israel back to the Jewish people, because after the Second World War, there was an absolute and intentional effort to annihilate Jewish people. World sympathy was with the Jewish people, as it should be. There was a great humanitarian effort to say, hey, these people have been abused, not just now, but they've been abused throughout their history. Wouldn't it be wonderful for them to have a homeland? That was great. The issue was that, first of all, none of the people living in that area were involved in the decision to create that homeland. Second of all, you're taking all these people and you're repatriating them to Israel, but people live there now. Okay, so what are you going to do about the people who are living there? You're displacing them, and that is, in my opinion, that's the root of this issue. When we talk about, I want to share 2 more things with you before I stop talking. But one of them is this Hamas. Why are we calling it that the Israel Hamas war? Hamas is a terroristic organization. I think it's funded by, if it doesn't have its genesis in the Caliphate of Iran, and so and it is devoted to the destruction of Israel. Now, sometimes we hear that and we go, "Oh my God, that's horrible," and it is sort of horrible to be devoted to any sort of destruction. But let us realize that this came, and I'm not trying to justify Hamas's existence or anything they do, but let us realize that a lot of this negative sentiment against Israel began to crystallize when the creation of Israel was imposed upon the people in the Middle East. And when the powers that were decided, well, the Palestinians are Arabs and the rest of the Arab world can take them in because we want to open this up to the Jewish people. The people who lived there had certain thoughts about that, and they weren't very positive thoughts. If you will allow me, I want to share with you and I don't have my notes as together as I'd like. So, and I think my first trip to Israel, we had lectures with this guy named Ari. Oh God, I called him Hagi Ben Aretz. Hagi Ben Aretz is Bibi Netanyahu's brother-in-law, and Mr. Ben Aretz no longer is in conversation with the Netanyahus. He's the brother of Netanyahu's wife. He's no longer in conversation with the Netanyahus because the Netanyahus are too liberal for him. Now, if you know anything about Israeli politics, that tells you that Mr. Ben Aretz is crazy because the Netanyahu and his ilk are incredibly conservative. But we were in this lecture with Hagi Ben Aretz, and he opened up the Bible, I think, to somewhere in Genesis. He opened up the Bible to Genesis, I think 18 to 21. And there it tells, it talks about Israel going from, the Wadi Musa or the Wadi of Egypt all the way to the Euphrates. And in this man's mind, Israel should extend from the Mediterranean to the Euphrates. All that should be the land of Israel. If Palestinians want to live there, they have three choices. They can live in Israel with no rights as second-class citizens. They can leave Israel, or they can stay in Israel and be killed. So he's a very extreme Zionist. But unfortunately, his that way of thinking is becoming increasingly popular in Israel. So just to sum this up, you have people who believe that the Jewish people should have a homeland, that they should have a homeland no matter what. That is in tension with the fact that homeland should be in the geographic region that we now know as Israel. That is in tension with the fact that Palestinians have lived in that area for millennia. And they are being displaced. There are no mechanisms to compensate these people, to relocate these people or anything. It's just like, okay, well, we're here now and you got to go. I have met individuals who have been displaced. I wasn't in Gaza, I was in the West Bank, but I've met people who've been displaced from the West Bank who have keys to their homes. Other people live in these homes now, and these Palestinians, they get stopped by the police. I mean, we talk about driving while Black in America. I had the experience of riding while Palestinian in Israel. It's the same thing. They are living they're being occupied in a land that used to be theirs, but now they're being told isn't theirs. This has been going on for 70 years. I am not by any way, shape, or form trying to justify the actions of Hamas. I am simply saying that when you live with somebody's boot on your neck for 70 years, there comes a time when you just don't care what you're doing. As I close, I also want to say that, I listen to Al Jazeera a lot. Not a lot. I've started listening to Al Jazeera lately because I want some balance.
So, Dr. Perry, I don't want you to close. I want you to hold that closing thought.
Okay.
And I want Dr. Horn to I'm sorry, Dr. Elamine, please forgive me for that. to jump in as well. But I want you to note that some of the people who commented while you were talking, the question was asked, what would happen if we would see Jesus as Palestinian instead of blind and blue-eyed? Someone else is here that says, when you're talking about Hamas, that if you keep beating a dog, they will fight back. And then we have another who said there's only one term for this: Europeans, Jewish colonizers who are not the original people of the land. Dr. Elamine, if you would.
Can I just respond to that one thing, please, and just say,
Yes.
if we were looking at a Palestinian Jesus instead of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed one, then we would be approaching an historically correct vision of Jesus. Okay, I'm done.
You gonna help somebody today, man.
Bismillah. Thank you for the opportunity to be here on today. I do have a few comments. I want to start with our identification of Hamas. First of all, we tend to call them terrorists because that's the political name that media gives us. Hamas is a Sunni activist group that was not created until 1987. It has already been identified that Zionism began earlier, even before the Second World War, 1917, in the Ottoman Empire, and even before that with the Roman Empire. Theodor Herzl's father was instrumental in wanting to create this Zionist movement. I go back that far in history because one of the things I think when I'm listening to this on Al Jazeera and when I'm listening to how our American media displays all that is going on over there, the way it is positioned is so that you will hear Muslim Jew.
My God.
That's what they want you to hear. Words that have already been used here, like colonizer, they don't want you to hear that. They don't want you to hear that the Herzls actually wanted to develop a Jewish state and intentionally said, if we could get an imperial state behind us, i.e. America or Great Britain, then we can take Palestine. They wanted to take Palestine for something that I call, when I teach about this, land Zionism. They knew that there was fertile land there. And so they wanted to take Palestine, live there. They wanted to enslave the native Arabs that were there. And just for the record, there were Palestinian Arabs, there were Palestinian Jews, and there were Palestinian Christians.
Wow.
Already living there in peace and harmony. When they wanted to get the Ottoman Empire involved, the Ottoman Empire wanted to be an imperial state, but did not want to enslave as the others did. Once not the Roman Empire, once the British Empire took over from the Ottoman Empire, this notion, what is his name? Balfour was working with Great Britain. And he says, oh, you know what would be a great thing to do? Let's connect this to the Bible and the land of Israel.
My God, here we go.
It was not originally connected to religion.
Wow.
It was land, politics, and economics. It was solely to take over the land so that they could inhabit it, have more money, and the oppress the oppressors. So they were trying to enslave others as they have been enslaved. Once this notion of Christianity and it became a Isaac Ishmael fight, which it never was. Once that was put before conservative Christians, they said, yay, we got to pray for the chosen people. And so now we have to take over and we have to get behind this. America, 10 million years later,
wow,
in conjunction with the British Empire, colonizing Palestinian people, presenting it to America as they're doing a great thing. And let me tell you something that really irritates me to no end when I think about it. And I did use the word irritate because, as you hear, I'm pretty emotional.
My God.
When they got to the land and they looked at the biblical text, they realized the Lot alayhi salam, Abraham alayhi salam story. Abraham got the rocky side. Lot got the fertile side. When they realized that the portion that would relate to the biblical text was the rocky, unfertile side, they removed 750,000 people from their land, from their homeland.
Wow.
And when you really see what's going on there today, if you can get on the other side of the wall, or you can stand high enough, look over, you realize that there are rocky shanties where these families are living.
My God.
And you see the Jewish side, the side of Israel, that's beautiful and lavish. That's where your $10 million your state, your tax money, that's where that money, some of that money is going. Shanties versus these beautiful homes. And here's something else you need to know that they won't tell you. The majority of the people that are staying on the inside, on the side that's the Israel state, they didn't come from Israel.
Oh, come on.
Oh! The majority of those people come from America and other places that got on the bandwagon and said, this is our homeland, we need a state. Many of them are third and fourth generation. They have never even, some of them have never even been to what they are calling home.
Home. My God.
So it is a great tragedy that you are displacing people. You are killing children. You are killing women. And what we see is terrorist propaganda to keep us snowed to what's really going on. Colonization isn't happening today. Well, if colonization isn't happening today, then those state representatives are not trying to take African American history out of the schools and replace it with what benefited African American people.
My God. Teach.
That's historical piece that undergirds what's going on. They want you to hear Muslim, Jewish. This is empire against the underserved people. Let me say this too, in case people don't really believe that this is real. I work with several people and several scholars who have not given me permission to call their name, so I will not call their name. In looking at, when I started working on teaching some of this and looking at the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, they're not just turning off water now. They're not just turning off lights now.
My God.
On any given day, they decide they're mad and they turn off the water.
Right.
Say that.
Any given day, they decide they're angry and they turn off the light. Nothing has to happen. No bomb has to go off. On any given day, children may not be able to go to school because they just have a whim and they decide they don't like them and they want to terrorize. And I'm going to tell you something. Turning off war, first of all, yes, we know it's against the Geneva Convention, but turning off water and lights, the Egypt side, there are resources that can come in for people, and them not being allowed to come in and give the people resources. They turned off the water, and now the hospitals do not know their sustainability with people who are in hospitals already sick. Those are war crimes.
No pain meds.
Those are war crimes. Can't do surgeries. That's a war crime.
My God.
That is equally as bad as trafficking people to the Americas. That is equally as bad as placing people in ovens. And you would think that at some time, you talk about the Jewish people, and let me throw this in. I know for all my good friends that are watching, I know that this is not biblical Israel.
Mm.
I realize that this is not biblical Israel. So I know that there are many people who are Jewish, who are working in solidarity with Palestinians, and they do not want any of these things to happen. And they are working just as hard. Thank you so much, so much. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And yet you would think that these who are they would say, atrocities have happened to us in the past. We don't want to colonize or hurt or kill or misuse anyone else. And yet we hear it. Often the oppressed become the oppressors.
That right there.
That's as much as I have to say. I see my husband is joined. And so he knows I get passionate. He was telling me today, calm down, wife, calm down. But I am very passionate. And they did everything for me not to wear my Palestinian.
Right now.
Wow. So thank you, Dr. Amin. And as we prepare to hear from your husband, I also want us to note some of the comments that have come through as well. And just like, okay, he's back. It says, saying it always goes back to money. Yes. That Jesus opposes the evil and corrupt religious leaders. Same thing. Someone else just came. Someone else said the colonizing didn't just happen there in Israel, but in Africa as well. And there's people like me who would say that it's all on the same continent. And and so someone else who would say literal reading of the Bible, is dangerous, and colonizers are always good for taking other folks' land. There's someone who also asked this question. I want to say this, and then as you think on this questions we hear from your husband. But that I want you all to remember this. When you talk, the water issue is really the main issue, has been the main issue for decades in this region of the control of the water. But I want y'all to think about something. When they initially said that the water had been turned off in Gaza, right? And then they said the power had been turned off. I want you to think about how there was not an outcry from the people of Gaza. I want you to think about that. Mm-hmm. That had their turning off the water and the power have been something new.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Right. But what we found was that people were talking about, well, our generators running, you heard from the hospitals, they just called us now to use our backup generators, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But there was no, okay, I want you all to think about this. Go back, and you can pull up these news clips on YouTube. Go back to when when this was turned off. And then here's this question that's been, what is the difference between what they're trying to do and what was done here in America from Native Americans? That's someone when we talk about colonization. Okay.
Let me go really quick before you bring on my husband. Excuse me, husband. Forgive me. Jesus alayhi salam, she is right, would never have even thought to do this. He was trying to deal with the powers that were doing this to others as a Palestinian Jew. We've made that. Also, I want to throw in here that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way the writings are in Quran, neither would he have condoned this. He would have said that if they come to you to oppress you and do something to you, then you have then the right to retaliate. I want to end with that, my comments, because I just want to make it a point. Did Hamas come first, or did Zionism come first?
That's good. And as your husband's coming up, it says here, Reverend Casey says, and Black preachers are not telling it because most have sided with evangelical Zionist Christianity, right? And so, right, and they bought into it part and parcel, right? That's what it is. Okay. All right, you calm down, Burns. All right, let's hear from Please say your first name for me, Mr. Alamin, so that
My
we
name
can
is
say it.
Talib Dean Elamine. Talib means student and seeker. Dean is faith, so a student seeker of the faith, and Elamine is trustworthy. And first of all, I was on the line, but not on the line. So I'm thinking you guys were late, but it was actually me not knowing how to log in. So I apologize. But let me just start with the first point, because I can't say wife. I wanted to be professional, say Dr. Elamine. I'm just going to say my wife. She approached things in such a scholarly way, so I won't, really touch back on some of those points that I thought were very important. But we have to understand what's going on is on par for the Western powers. It is a colonial project. This is what they told you. We understand when you look at geopolitical affairs, why Israel exists where it exists. It exists to the benefit of America and its interest in the Middle East. So, but they are on par. This is what they did in the Berlin Conference in 1883 when they carved up Africa. This is what they did to the Native Americans when they come here. This is what they did. So this is not a surprise that America would align themselves with this. Yeah. It's not a surprise that I find many of our clergy that are afraid to take a position because people are watching clergy and those dollars that flow into those churches and whatnot. So people don't want to ruffle feathers, but this presents a great opportunity. I see a blessing in this because in every instance of turmoil, there is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for people of faith to rise because they want to paint this as a Muslim Jewish thing. And it is not. This is about governments who have no interest in faith. I can say that because when people have faith, we move differently. We know what the Jewish people say of the neighbor, what the Muslims say of the neighbor, and what the Christians say of the neighbor. For us, it says, woe to those who don't tend to the neighborly needs. The Christians say, devise not evil against our neighbor, and to assure that he dwells securely with you. So we understand there's no problem that exists. The problem that I have, we say the first casualty of war is not the loss of life, it's the truth. And this day of information, it's really sad that almost with a cognitive dissonance, that even with the information that's out there, you can tell people these things. You can even our own people who have had a connection with a history that America has done this to our people will still side with oppressive forces. And let me be clear, we don't condone any innocent killing of any innocent civilians.
That's right.
Women, children, sacred places. Matter of fact, when we go back into history and when Saladin was fighting the Crusaders, one of the advantages that the Crusaders had is that they put the women and the children out on the field. So the Muslims, their hands were tied in terms of fighting in the manner that they would normally fight. So, a lot of stuff, I approach it from the political perspective. Having been in politics, having been, I was in Sudan in 2004 and had a chance to meet with some UN representatives, and and what you got here in the West was totally different. Matter of fact, one of the Australian representatives told us, I would not repeat this. And if you repeat it, I will say that you're lying. But he showed us things in Sudan, and they labeled it a genocide. And there was fighting going on. But what the Sudanese people didn't know is that the Americans ran a oil grid in 1978. They knew that oil was in southern Sudan, or the Sudanese found out about it 30 years later. So there's always a motivation of government, and we conflate the interests of government with the people. So I'm going to want to believe myself that the actions of the Zionist government of Israel does not reflect the good Jewish people of Israel. And just like they like to conflate the actions of Hamas with the people of Palestine. So, but we know this is done by design, and we don't have a media that will back up the truth. So from a political perspective, I think there's two questions that you have to ask anybody with all this information, because this is information overload to the common person. So you ask two basic questions. Do we value the sanctity and humanity of all people? And second, do we respect law and order? So I would hope that everyone says yes. Because if you say yes, now we can talk outside of the facts that we know biblically and scripturally and whatnot. Let's just talk legally. And I mean, it's just staggering. From 2015 to 2022, the United Nations General Assembly had 140 resolutions against Israel and its occupation. And even prior to that, there were 28 resolutions that the Security Council had found them in violation. And what you find is that America, the U.S. government, will punish those countries who would vote against Israel. So we have to even be knowledgeable about the terminology that we use. You know, often a loss of American life or its allies is termed tragic, which it is tragic. But what do you hear when there's a black life, a brown life, or a Muslim life? It's collateral damage.
That's right.
So it's hard for me because my wife and I were praying this morning, and I tell you, I could barely finish the prayer because I cried, because there were Palestinians who were praying at the same time I was praying, but I had the comfort of a warm home and a comfortable prayer rug. They were praying on rubble, maybe next to a body of their mother or their father. You know, so this is the time that not only the will and the courage of people of faith are called upon to act upon that, but we're called to examine the heart. And I just have to believe, because you can see so much, I just have to believe that God's will prevail. And we see so much evil. We see so much evil and we despair, but we're told to despair not of the mercy of God. His mercy is greater than his wrath. So we have to work to not despair. We have to work to speak in whatever circles that we can speak to get out another perspective. That if you can cause one person to think, if you could cause one person to have a conversation with a group of people, you know, we have to do our little part. So, like I said, it's a lot of information out there. I myself served in Desert Storm. I was sharing with my wife a story of being there and watching how some of the American sailors treated some of the Egyptians while we were in Cairo. And my son now has been deployed over there on the USS Enterprise. And so I think about those young men and many other young men who we put their lives out there, not saying that, and I believe the service is good, but we're putting our kids' lives out there on a lie. Many people are dying off a lie. Millions of lives were lost in Iraq off a lie. Lives are going to be lost not only in Palestine, in Gaza, not only in Israel, but this thing is so big as I think some people have bit off more than they can chew. Now you got Russia, you got China, you got the world now. Now you can think what we want to think here in America about our might, but we know we got countries that can bankrupt this country without firing a shot, just by manipulating their currency. So this is a time of faith. This is even more a time for us to really turn to our respective faiths, because we don't know the hour. You know, but I do know the outcome, and I believe that God's will and His way will prevail. So I just want to offer that. You know, my wife got the going, so anything I could have possibly said, I'm sure that she Yeah, touched on it. I just want to, I'll leave you with this. And it's a reason why some of our greatest leaders,
Okay.
of course,
So
she didn't have hers, but I have mine. You have mine.
before you leave us with it, I need to come back to Perry,
Okay.
who had her closing thought.
Okay,
And we'll
yes.
hear from each of you all, and we only have about 5 minutes now left of our broadcast time.
Thank you.
Viewers, in the meantime, as they are responding, please put it in there that this information has been beneficial, that you learned something on today, that this time has been informative for you. All right, Dr. Perry.
Thank you. Thank you all for your testimonies. I will piggyback on Dr. Talib Din El Amin by saying that one popular symbol of countering the Israeli occupation is representations of a watermelon. Why? Because watermelon is green, white, red, and black. The same colors as in the Palestinian flag. And in Israel, when they won't allow you to display the Palestinian flag, many people are displaying pictures of watermelons or symbols of watermelons. So that's one thing you can do. I want to share these final thoughts with you. I want to share that Menachem Begin, who is, characterized as a liberator of Israel, he was a terrorist. They describe him as a freedom fighter, but he was a terrorist. He went around killing people. And with all apologies to Dr. El Amin, I choose to term Hamas a terrorist organization because they're committed to terrorizing people, because part of their charter is terrorizing people, not because I've been blown away by the Western media, but because they have a commitment to terrorizing people. The reason they have a commitment to terrorizing people is because they're trying to make a point. But I stand with that. We in the West, we talk about baby killers and, oh, it's so horrible, but the cognitive dissonance allows us to not consider the fact that Israel is systematically cutting off water, medicine, egress, trapping people in, and then it's telling us that they're going to come in with land, air, sea, and land to kill them. I mean, they're going to, and 40% of the population of Palestine is women and children. So I'll just leave you with that. I wrote about the ethnic cleansing of Palestine in 2009. I just wrote about it because that was the only way I could term what I saw going on. When you talked about the economic aspects, many of our Christian religious sites are in Palestine. Palestinians don't get access to the economic successes of Palestine. It's all controlled by Israel. We need to look at that. I mean, I wrote sometime, well, what would happen if Palestinians had control over Palestine? We talked about, Muslim and Jewish differences. I just want to go back to the Eids and the story of Abraham and Isaac. I was talking to a Muslim brother at work, and I was like, "Ooh, Eid Said or Eid al-Fitr. That's when you go to celebrate when Abraham went up on the mountain to sacrifice Isaac." And he was like, "Well, Abraham went up, but in our story, he was going up to sacrifice Ishmael." So you've got these two brothers, two kingdoms. I was talking to my pastor. You look at the Bible, you see where Abraham came from, where he went back to. Just read it carefully, and there's a lot more to unpack there than what we're commonly taught. And having said that, I want to say that, when we go to Israel, the last time I was in Israel, it's been over 10 years.
Dr.
Yes,
Perry,
ma'am.
we're at our closing time. Okay,
Good.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Amin and your husband, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, I do want to encourage people to look at the history and look at the sites. I think Dr. Perry was headed that direction when you look at Al-Aqsa, and that there is also a synagogue and a church on that same property, so nobody has rights to it. I think that's something that you need to look at. I think also we need to be mindful that Hamas came after Zionism in response to it. I think we need to be mindful of that. The last thing is hadith. It is a tradition in Islam that says you do not love unless you love for your brother what you love for yourself. I think the Bible says it this way: love God, love your neighbor, as you love yourself.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Centered humanity. That's it.
Dr. Burns, if I just might, I just want to lift up one thing before we go.
Okay,
And
hold on a second. I do want you to do that, and we'll just hear from our last guest. I think he just unmuted. All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I was going to give my wife the last word, like I give her the last piece of chicken, but I just want to say this is very important for people to understand that there's a reason why our great leaders that fought against colonialism in Africa and people like Nelson Mandela, who was clear in understanding that the struggle for Palestinian liberation runs concurrent with our own struggle here as Africans in America, and with the African struggle for liberation there. So, we have to also recognize in our own respective leadership why this Palestinian issue is so important.
Well, thank you. All right. Dr. Wallace.
I really just want to lift up again that the state of Israel are European Jews from World War II.
Yeah.
They have no relationship to the children that came from Jacob. So help us. I just want us to understand that we do not need to just be on the side of Israel, the state of Israel, but we also need to be on the side of the Palestinians. I said last week, we need to think about why people retaliate. They get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they have been beaten down until they have had enough. And I can relate to that. Thank you, Dr. Burns.
Thank you. Dr. Wright, any closing thoughts for us before we end?
My prayer is just that God will break our heart with the things that break his heart. Because until we become open and tender, we're really not going to get a full understanding of what's going on.
That's good.
And in my closing thought, I'd like to ask that all of you especially keep the Palestinians in your prayers during this time. They were told to evacuate, but their ability to leave was blocked. They could neither go into Egypt or into the West Bank. And so those areas were blocked. And then they were told they were going to be bombed within 24 hours. Imagine you being told that you had to leave where you were within 24 hours to escape. And then when you got on there, all of the major highways and the back roads were all closed and did not allow you to exit or to enter. And then would you want to leave?
Right.
This is your land. This is your home. This is your family. This is your community. And so as we are looking at what our mainstream media continues to feed us, do a little back research. Those of you who are people of faith, go into your prayer closet, go to your prayer rod, go to your place and really seek and hear the voice of God in this time. Our eyes need to be open, and we need to understand that if we, those of us who come from that liberation theology of believing that God is the God of the oppressed, ask yourself the question, who is the oppressed in this time and this season? God bless you. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being with us on this day. And we hope to see you on next week. Our guests, please hang around backstage for us.